I hope everyone is all right. This is Soapbox After Dark. I am your host, Jamarl Thomas. I'm your tired host. This has been a long day. Me doing the news, sitting here perched on the moon of sorts. Before I end the show, though, there was a story that I wanted to get on. In fact, there are two stories that I want to touch upon. But this one, definitely, because I thought there's a parallel, and I thought these were interesting stories. Not so much that I have a huge commentary on it, just kind of a be aware. The New York Times gets a hold of Donald Trump's taxes-ish. I mean, they get a hold of documents where they can essentially make a correlation, effectively getting copies of the returns for several years, not for the years that the Democratic Party is trying to get, but for a long section of time. Before even getting to what's taking place in Congress right now, there's a battle, there's a fight that's taking place that is going to go directly to the Supreme Court. Not directly, but it's going to go to the Supreme Court. But before we even get to that point, over the course of the last, I think it was like a decade or more, Donald Trump lost over $1 billion. He lost more money. They said that he lost more money almost than any other American in this country. Like, to get across the staggering amount of money that he was losing. As he was writing the book, Art of the Deal, and bragging about how successful he was losing tens of billions of dollars. The numbers are staggering. His dad gave him millions of dollars just to stabilize him. And it seems that he just bled or peed money, pissed away money. Now, here's the catch. The Democratic Party, now that they've gotten in office and have control of one of the branches of government, have used that branch to try to go after Trump to figure out what's in his tax returns. Now, I don't like the fact that the Democratic Party has politicized this process in this way. But I didn't like it that the Republican Party has politicized the process. They just do it in different ways. Both are politicizing the process in a way that goes beyond this battle of ideas into finding ways to game the system. The Democrats have more finesse. Let's say it that way. Because the fact of the matter is, if the Democrats' plan had worked, you would have never known they had implemented a plan at all. You would have just thought the Ukrainian government had intervened into the American politics just willy-nilly. That the Manafort documents was just released willy-nilly. Or that Trump was being investigated willy-nilly. You would have never known. The Republicans are more blunt, but more effective. Going after unions, going after the mechanisms by which the Democratic Party uses to prop itself. You could say kind of a power base. Attacking voting rights, suppressing voting rights in some cases, gerrymandering the areas. When the Democratic Party was screaming at the height of their lungs about Russia, what they should have been screaming was the Republican Party. That's your Russia, if Russia exists at all. And that in the context of affecting the results of the election, especially in areas that were close, like Wisconsin and Michigan. But moving beyond that point, they're trying to get their hands on Trump's recent tax returns. Now, most presidents over the last God knows how many years have released their returns, and you can understand why. This guy is trying to be top office, the top executive. He's going to be dealing with issues of foreign policy, and that the public should know that he's not working in the interest or at the behest of another power, which is why the Russia stuff was so disastrous in regards to how it allowed foreign policy to be tarnished, particularly with Russia, who's somebody we should be getting along with, or at the very least having conversations about, seeing as 90% of the nuclear weapons are between the two countries. So I gotta be honest, I don't like the politicization of this. But should his tax returns be seen? Hell yeah. It should be a mandate that any Democratic or any president that's running for office should be able to disclose their returns. Why wouldn't they be able to disclose their returns? And if they can't, shouldn't that be somewhat of a red flag and a problem? Shouldn't it be a red flag? So in this case, the Democratic Party says they want their returns. Now, here's the catch. In the same way that I absolutely agree that Barr had all the powers in the world to get rid of the case. Say, look, we're done. Mueller did his case. I'm not finding obstruction on something that wasn't even a crime in the first place, meaning Donald Trump didn't do anything. Fair game. Democrats have been howling and bitching about this. I look at this and says, Barr had every power in the world to do that. By the same token, I'm stuck with the same rule set. The Democratic Party, House and Ways Committee, has the power to go after Trump's taxes. And that's exactly what they're doing. There is a fight right now that's taking place in Congress with the Democratic Party trying to get their hands on Donald Trump's tax returns. And Donald Trump doing everything in his power to say no and to avoid giving it to him. Take a look at this. This is right here. Do you know that it is? That's Warren G. Harding. That's President Warren G. Harding. Warren G. Harding was apparently, at least by all estimates, one of the most corrupt criminal administrations ever to hold sway, meaning ever to hold presidency or ever to have an administration in our country. He was so corrupt that he was embroiled in a scandal called Teapot Dome scandal. Essentially, think of it as a bribery scandal. You had oil barons who were essentially putting money in pockets in order to get contracts. In order to deal with this, legislation was passed in 1924 that allowed Congress to look at taxes. Now, it's not each and every person in Congress, I mean, it's not every member of Congress, but it's people, heads of certain committees that have access to it. And yeah, if they want to, they can release to Congress and larger public. They're given the authority to do so. U.S. Code 6103. And just so you can see exactly what I'm talking about, right here. Now, I am going to use Bill Black to explain this, but just so we're clear, a century ago, the Teapot Dome corruption scandal engulfed Harding's administration, spurring Congress to pass legislation that finally reclaimed its right to review private tax returns. It was a solid law and remains so today. The legislative branch has the power to tax and spend and review the personal tax returns, falls within the rights and obligations. Understand what they're saying. Congress controls the purse strings. It would be an odd thing for Congress to control the purse strings but not able to look at how the money is being spent. It falls under Congress's purview to investigate. Now, Mnuchin has looked at Congress and told them to kick rocks, saying that you don't have a legitimate reason to get Trump's tax returns and you guys are politicizing the process. Now, I agree with him that they're politicizing the process. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. At least not based on the way this law is written. Let's listen to Bill Black. Bill Black is going to give an explanation of this. And I'm not going to keep this one much longer. Ah, good. 8 minutes was not too bad. He's going to give an explanation of what this law is. U.S. Code 6103. Based off the 1924 Teapot Dome scandal.
The secretary saying, no, you shouldn't have these tax returns because this is politicized and you don't have a legitimate reason. So what is this section 6103 and what does it mean?
Well, it means the Democrats win, is the short answer. I was also litigation director of a major federal agency, and I'm a law prof as well. So what it says in the statute is while it isn't all of Congress that can request, it's the key committee chairs in the House and the Senate. This is the appropriate one in the House. So this is one of the consequences of the Democrats getting control of the House, that they're now in a position to make this request. And while the word I'm using is request, the statute is mandatory. It's not discretionary. It says when you receive this request, you shall provide those documents to the committee chair.
So understand what Bill Black is saying here. This is not up to the discretion of Mnuchin. It's not him saying, yeah, I don't want to give it to you. It doesn't work that way. The Democratic Party has pushed to immediately go to court over this. Because understand, they want to get their hands on these returns as fast as possible, meaning that this may escalate extremely fast for them to try to get their hands on it. Because from their standpoint, they want to try to punch and tear and find any brick or rock that they can hit Donald Trump with. The fact that Donald Trump doesn't want to show his returns and that he broke precedent or broke protocol in the way that presidents typically show their returns draws a massive spotlight and a red flag on those returns. Who knows what's in those returns? It doesn't even necessarily matter as much as releasing the returns themselves and getting those returns out into the public. It's what they want to do based on him not wanting to do it. Not to mention, it gives this kind of thought that there may be something in returns that Donald Trump doesn't want the public to see. Either he's not as rich as he say he is, or there's something shady going on. Let's hear Bill Black finish.
So the Democrats have a clean winner. What's the origins of the statute? The origins of the statute are in the Teapot Dome scandal. And in history, there used to be a debate about the most corrupt administration in the United States, whether it was the Grant administration or the Harding administration.
Right.
The Harding administration is what brought us the Teapot Dome scandal. Teapot Dome was petroleum reserves. These were insider sales to situations where the Secretary of the Interior, the guy granting the oil leases and gas leases, was secretly on the payroll getting kickbacks. So it's just blatant corruption. And he was the first sitting cabinet level secretary of an agency to go to prison, for which he richly deserved. Okay, so there's no debate anymore.
And Mellon, by the way, just a digression, but and Andrew Mellon, the financier and financial tycoon of the day, was Secretary of the Treasury. You should add that as well, right?
Yeah, it was, again, another gang of thieves. Anyway,
Right.
That used to be the historical debate. Who was most corrupt, Harding, Trump?
You get his point. I don't want to belabor the point. What it boils down to is, from a legal standpoint, just from a basic legal standpoint, it is in with Congress's purview to compel the Treasury to hand over the taxes. It is perfectly legal for them to do so. Mnuchin not doing so is, let's call it, if not breaking the law, definitely fracturing the law. And this is absolutely going to go to court. In fact, right here, Democrats appear headed straight to court for Trump's tax returns. And not just court, the Supreme Court, because these guys are fighting tooth and nail not to release those returns. House Ways and Means Chairman Richard Neal indicated Tuesday that Democrats will go straight to federal court to try to force the administration to give up President Donald Trump's tax returns, skipping a subpoena or a contempt vote. Their point is, what's the point in the subpoena and a contempt vote when they weren't paying attention to these things anyway? It didn't seem to bother them, meaning when they were compelling them to give up information and they just pretty much ignored it. What's the point? Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin on Monday shot down Neal's request for 6 years' worth of Trump's personal tax returns and some of his business filings. Mnuchin told Neal that relying on the Justice Department's advice, he determined that the request lacks a legitimate legislative purpose, so Treasury isn't authorized to disclose. Isn't political language amazing? I mean, for the most part, you cast the language any particular way and you just argue the point. It's amazing. It's not torture, it's enhanced interrogation. Now that makes it perfectly okay. Democrats have decided that they want the returns to examine IRS's long-standing policy of automatically auditing all presidents and vice presidents, since they don't know how rigorous the examinations are. But they've also been open about wanting to examine the returns for malfeasance, and they want to try to make them public. This is where I have somewhat problems with this. Now, I agree that the returns should be made public, but I believe that all presidents who's running, people should be able to check them out from the rooter to the tutor. So this is not just me making some kind of standard for Trump. I think this is just should be a standard of everybody who's running for office. Believing and trusting the IRS to do this. My issue with this is that it's politicized. They don't have anything in particular that they're looking for. They just want to go digging in order to find something in order to hit Trump over the head with, where they can point to and say, see, we knew that there was something there, but they don't necessarily know what's there to begin with. This is a searching operation. And it's a searching and operation that they wasn't necessarily going to do from Clinton regarding the Clinton Foundation, even though the information was released on WikiLeaks. You couldn't get CNN to cover that information. But nevertheless, Donald Trump is president, and to remain consistent, his returns should be displayed. If you're going to run for president, there's some things that you should show the American public, and your taxes is one of them. So, wow, there are people here on this. I started to think Jamal has a reading disability. More debt. What? Oh, a reading disability with names. Oh, yeah. Not Muchin. I didn't say Mouchin, I said Muchin. But it does seem like I have a reading disability with names, so fair enough. Mercedes Cali fishing expedition. It does come across as a fishing expedition, which is kind of the problem with this. Like, it's one thing. I'll give you an example. Hillary Clinton goes screaming that Donald Trump is working with the Russians. What is she using to make this? She has a dossier that they paid for, and this dossier gets shuffled around to the intelligence services until somebody bites, and then they use this in order to spy on Trump, using the Russia stuff as an excuse, even going so far as to have a honeypot to try to entrap Papadopoulos. A bat? Oh, wait a minute. I got to come back to that one. They didn't have anything. Like, they opened up an investigation on Trump for the last 3 years on squat. What's his name? Mueller goes in and says there's no connection between Trump and Russia on this. We've been looking for ghosts for the last 3 years. That's a fishing expedition. Whatever they could find in that investigation, they were going to use to hit Trump with. Now, here's the catch. If you remember, Bill Clinton was the same way. When Republicans was going after Bill Clinton, they started this case with Whitewater, and they were able to parlay what they were doing with that into something that they could actually hit Bill Clinton with and impeach him with. These are fishing expeditions. I do believe Trump should have shown his taxes. But let's be honest at the very least and call it what it is. It's a fishing expedition. They had nothing on Trump, ran a scam university, stole from kids. That's nothing. They have plenty, depending on perspective. Oh, whoa, don't misunderstand me. Do not misunderstand me. I didn't say Trump wasn't corrupt. I didn't say that at all. If you ask me, do I think Trump corrupt? The answer is yes. I do think Trump is corrupt. The Trump University and all that other stuff. But that's a little different than going into an investigation saying we know X and we're looking to confirm X. This is them just fishing. This is them just fishing. Again, I do believe he should show his taxes. He's running for president of the United States. Do I believe that Trump has probably done some shady dealings? Yes, he probably has. In fact, the New York Times examination of his tax returns gets across a certain degree of criminality that went for years, might as well say decades. So, I'm not, this is not one of those things where you have to disabuse me of this notion that Donald Trump is corrupt. I'm already there. He had me at hello. It's a giant farce. Democrats are trying to do it and find payments to Russia, and Trump doesn't want it because people will find out that he's not a billionaire. Right. And that's the funny part. Like, they'll claim, see, we knew that there was something going on with Russia, missing the point that it may be something else that we may consider a little bit more innocuous that he may be embarrassed of. Like the sanctions thing. They kept hitting Trump saying, oh, he hasn't passed sanctions. He doesn't pass sanctions. Why has he not passed sanctions? He's not passing sanctions on Russia because, he's under the thumb of Vladimir Putin. And you're like, is there any other reason at all that Trump might not pass sanctions on Russia? And the answer is yes. If Trump passed sanctions on Russia, it's for the most part saying, I didn't get elected on my own strength. I got elected because Russia essentially gamed the system. No president would do that. No president would do that. No president would get their legacy tarnished in such a way as to getting Vladimir Putin across the finish line. That would just be a fail. Krillin 876, what would tax returns show? Would a drug dealer show his income? Teapot Dome is child's play to today's politics. Now that is interesting, right? I mean, Teapot Dome in 1924 has taxes and so forth changed to such a degree where it's not enough. Like it doesn't go far enough to see it. I would say this though, Krillin, if it didn't matter, why is he trying to stop them from showing it? And when I'm saying matter, I'm saying in the context for whatever reason Trump doesn't want it. Whether it's he's not as rich as he say he is, if it's he's been underplaying his wealth, which is something that came out in the other testimony, if he's inflating his wealth in some cases, which is something that came out in the testimony, if he's losing tons of cash, which already came out in regards to the $1 billion Trump's lost, like whatever is in those returns, he clearly doesn't want that to be shown. Clearly doesn't want it to be shown. And Jamal, there's something called the Brave browser, and you can donate via BAT, a cryptocurrency in browser either automatically or one at a time, and block ads, pro privacy, etc. It's called the Brave browser. I am not. Well, you know what? I'll check it out. Mark, I know the currency is your thing, crypto, so I'll check it out. Why aren't they trying to remove him for Israel collusion? They seem desperate to remove him by any means necessary, except if it makes it look like we're in the bad. Weird. That's just it. It doesn't. It's not. It is. It is, and it's not weird. I mean, you're right about the Israeli collusion, but you would even be right about the Ukrainian collusion. Ukrainian collusion, even more so than Israeli collusion, because the Ukrainian collusion was to some degree direct intervention into our political affairs. I think we have a like mind on this one, Skip. Beltazar, if he isn't a billionaire, then the whole persona of anyone, no matter how crass, can be a billionaire through hard work falls apart. The funny part, Beltazar, he crafted himself as a billionaire. That's his persona of sorts. That's how he's. I met this guy. I remember I was at a chess tournament. And at the time, I think my rating was 20 something. I was over 2,000, or at the very least up there, like 19 something or 2,000. And I never put on airs. My rating is my rating. The games that I win are the games that I win. The games that I lose are the games that I lose. I don't need to say that I'm rated X. I am what I am. And the guy felt the need to overinflate his rating. Now, when you go to the tournament board where you can see who you're playing, you can see exactly what the person's rating is. And yet, he was so shallow. He felt so small that he felt that he needed to inflate his rating to something else. Donald Trump may potentially have dumped all of his eggs in one basket from the standpoint of wealth, meaning his personal sense of value may have been completely tied to this notion of wealth. Think of it for the moment, if you can't necessarily evaluate certain esoteric items, but wealth, meaning the amount of money that you get, the amount of money that you can put in the bank, the business deals that you do, the wheeling and dealing, and to some degree, the perspective of other people, using that for your own sense of self-worth. Now, mind you, he's been failing miserably, losing $1 billion. That is an astonishing amount of money to lose. He could have just given that money away for that matter. Yeah, I guess it's just, that's an astonishing amount of money to lose, man. It really is. Not in defense of Trump, but are they going to arrest whoever releases returns like they did Julian Assange? That's the other point, right? It's like, We don't know how those returns were released, but yeah, that is a good point. I mean, after all, Julian Assange was releasing information that he was given. He didn't hack anything. He literally was in an embassy for 7 years for this. Now, Trump's tax returns have come out. The New York Times published them. Are they going to arrest the publisher of the New York Times for whoever released this information? That's a good question. I strongly suspect not. New York Times made me laugh saying it was leaked by someone with legitimate access. A good leak. Right, I know, right? A good leak. It wasn't stolen. It was a legitimate leak. I love that. I love that. Legitimate leak. Is hacking info that should be public morally wrong? Doubt it. Look, the biggest issue that we had was if the roles were reversed, and it wasn't Clinton, it was Trump. Do you honestly believe the Democrats will be up in arms over it? And not just up in arms over it. To some degree, it was the Democratic Party that was working, that was paying off Christopher Steele in order to release that information. My point is, what they're attacking Trump with, they were doing themselves. So, just saying. Just saying. All right. I'm going to end this because I have to be honest, I am somewhat dragging ass. But guys, if you enjoy the content and you find yourself coming back to this channel often, please consider supporting this content through PayPal or Patreon. YouTube is a fickle mistress and demonetizes on the fly. So I appreciate your help. And by the way, even if it's just sharing or liking the video, all of that is appreciated. So thanks all. And I'll see you maybe in a few. I think I want to get a few games of chess in, but we'll see. Have a good one, guys.